Hi everyone, it's Gina K from Gina K Designs, and I'm so excited to be here on the Simon Says Stamp YouTube channel. A while back, Heidi, the owner of Simon Says Stamp, and I were together, and she told me that she wanted to do something really special for the customers at Simon. Heidi has the biggest heart in the crafting industry, and together we came up with a plan. The product I'm about to show you is yours free with any purchase while supplies last. Introducing the Tiny Wreath Builder Bundle. This little stamp set and stencil bundle will allow you to make the tiniest little wreaths that will fit perfectly on tags available at Simon Says Stamp and other cardstock. You can also create little note cards to attach to gifts for the holidays and way beyond. This set works for every season because it's filled with the perfect images for all types of occasions. And the stencil can be used to create beautiful snowflakes on cards, gift packaging, scrapbook pages, and so much more. If this is the first time you're using the Wreath Builder, let me explain how it works. This piece of cardstock measures 2 3/8 of an inch by 2 3/8 of an inch, and it's going to fit perfectly inside the Wreath Builder template. I'm going to use the magnet to hold that cardstock down, and then I'm going to choose an image from the Tiny Wreath stamp set. I'm going to use this greenery. And I'm going to place this image face down off to the one side of my cardstock. The closer it is to the edge, the bigger my wreath will be. I'm going to pick it up using the door of the MISTI, and then I'm going to ink it up with some ink. The ink I'm going to use is the Gina K Designs Fresh Asparagus ink. I'm going to ink up the stamp, and then I'm going to close the door of the MISTI, and that's going to put the impression exactly where I want it on my piece of cardstock. Now, I'm going to turn that piece of cardstock to the next position in the template. I'm going to ink up the stamp again, and then I'm going to stamp it again. I'm going to continue to turn to each position in the template and ink up the stamp and stamp it, and that is going to allow me to have perfectly positioned images to create a circular pattern. They're going to be evenly spaced, and they are going to be perfectly centered in my cardstock. So you can see now I have the beginnings of a beautiful wreath. Now I'm going to add a flower to this wreath, and I'm going to use this tiny image right here. And you can see there are some openings in the wreath, so I'm going to put the flower right into one of those openings and then pick it up using the door of the MISTI. Now that little opening is consistent around the entire wreath, so that flower will fit right into all of those openings. I'm going to use some red velvet ink, and I'm going to ink up the flower and stamp it. Now I'm going to take the cardstock, once again turn it to the next position in the template, and I'm going to ink up the stamp and stamp it again. And I'm going to continue to do that around the entire wreath until I have 8 perfectly spaced, beautiful red velvet flowers. So here's my last one, and you can see how beautiful that wreath turned out. Now the next thing I'm going to do is stamp the greeting, and this Tiny Wreath stamp set comes with 2 big round greetings that are perfect to cut out with dies, or you can stamp them right over the wreath in the center. So this one says, "A gift for you," and you can see it's nice and solid. So now I'm going to stamp the inside of my card. And I'm going to start with the same little sprig of greenery, and I'm going to use the fresh asparagus because I want the inside of my card to coordinate with the outside. I'm going to randomly stamp these up the side of this piece of cardstock, just using a small acrylic block. If you prefer to use the MISTI, you can, but you will have to change the position of the stamp each time. Now I'm going to go back to that first flower that I used, and I'm going to stamp that in some red velvet ink. And I'm going to stagger these down that little vine that I created, and then I'm going to stamp some on the outside, kind of going off the cardstock. And then I'm going to finish it off by bringing a flower in on the top and bringing one in on the bottom, so it almost appears as though that greenery is a little bit arced. Now it's time to add a to and from greeting, because this is going to be the inside of my little note card that's going to get attached to a Christmas gift. So I'm going to position the to and the from where I want them, leaving myself enough room to write the names. And it's nice that these are separated, because if you're using a much bigger piece of cardstock or you're using a tag, you might want the to and the from to be spaced apart a little bit more. So I'm stamping the to and the from using some black onyx ink, and my inside is done. Now I have a card base, and I'm using red velvet cardstock, and I'm going to attach the white pieces of cardstock to some black onyx cardstock. I really like to outline the pieces of card that I make with black. I think that it really makes the images pop when you add a little bit of black, just that thin little layer. I'm going to do that to the inside piece as well so that they coordinate. And then my next step is going to be to put these pieces onto the card. So I'm going to adhere this inside piece to the inside of the card. And the tape runner that I'm using is the Gina K Designs Adhesive Dot Runner. That adhesive dot runner allows me to make mistakes and lift my card piece back up without damaging the cardstock underneath. But once you position it, it's permanent. Now I'm using some of my new low profile foam squares, and I'm going to pop that centerpiece up off of the wreath. And so there's the finished look of the inside and outside of my card. Now, no square card is complete without a little matching envelope, so I'm going to make one using this piece of fresh asparagus cardstock. And I cut this down to 7 inches by 3 1/4 inches. So I'm using the Score Buddy or the Scor-Pal for this, and I'm going to score at 2.5 inches, and then I'm going to score at 5.5 inches. Then I'm going to fold away from those score lines just to kind of get that fold started. Now I'm going to use some of the Gina K Designs white pigment ink with the stencil, and I'm going to add some snowflakes onto the outside of this envelope. I really like adding a little bit of a pattern on these tiny envelopes, especially if you're going to attach them to a gift. You're not going to need to address them, so it's kind of fun to jazz them up. You can also do this same template using just a piece of pattern paper. So I'm rounding the corners of the flap to give it a more finished look. And now it's time to tape up the sides. This is a super easy way to make a little square envelope without having to do lots of turning and scoring and cutting. Just by cutting that rectangle and adding the tape down the sides to seal the bottom flap up onto the main part of the envelope. I'm just checking here to make sure that my card's going to fit inside, and it does. And now I'm going to peel the liners off of that terrific tape, and then I'm going to fold the flap up to secure it into place. So I'm just kind of pressing down each side, making sure there's no wrinkles in that cardstock. And now you can see how perfectly that little card fits into that little square envelope. Now to seal this envelope, I just use a little bit of that terrific tape, and then I put it right across the flap. So there's my finished card and envelope. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll give this little note card a try. And now it's time to head over to simonsaysstamp.com and place your order so you can be one of the first to get the Tiny Wreath Builder bundle. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon on the Simon Says Stamp YouTube channel.